Today is week 5 of Dynamic Duos. So far, we've looked at relationships on good days or average days. Now we're going to look at what friendship looks like on the bad days. Faith in God does not protect us from experiencing pain and suffering. The Bible is not full of characters with perfect lives. There's tragedy and heartbreak and failure, and one of those tragic stories is the life of a woman named Naomi. Naomi, her husband, and 2 sons had to move to a foreign country because of a famine in their hometown. The 2 boys both ended up marrying local women, and the family was adjusting to their new home. But all that excitement was short-lived. Naomi's husband passed away and left her as a widow. Then both of her sons died, leaving her daughter-in-laws as widows too. Naomi was all alone in this foreign place, so she decided to pack up and move back home, hoping that some old friends might be willing to support her there. And at first, both her daughter-in-laws joined her in the move, but Naomi encouraged them to go back home, find new husbands, move on. She didn't have much hope for her own future, but these 2 young women could still find new husbands and have a family. One daughter-in-law kissed Naomi goodbye and went home. But the other one, Ruth, replied with these famous words, "Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." Ruth promised to stick with Naomi during the lowest point of her life, and these 2 became one of the great dynamic duos of the Bible. Ruth is a powerful example of how dynamic duos care for each other well. All of us will need a good friend to care for us at some point in our lives. All of us will also have a friend that needs us to care for them. The story of Ruth and Naomi teaches us 4 things about caring for each other. The first is that care is not always convenient. Naomi was in a tough situation, but Ruth had her own problems too. She had also lost her husband. It would have been easier for her to stay in her hometown and just try and put her life back together. No one would have blamed her for looking out for herself. But her compassion for Naomi outweighed her own convenience, and she made personal sacrifices to care for Naomi well. Most of our friends will show up when they have time. A good friend will make some time in their schedule, but a great friend makes caring a priority even when they don't have the time. Care doesn't just require us to sacrifice time. Sometimes we have to be willing to sacrifice our own comfort to be there for someone else. It's hard for a lot of us to see others in pain. We can't find the words to say. We don't know what to do. Their pain might bring up our own pain, and we just don't want to deal with that. And these fears might keep us from making a phone call that we know we should make. We would much rather laugh with a friend than cry with them. And caring's not always convenient. Dynamic friends are those that are willing to make the necessary sacrifices to care well. The second lesson we learned from Ruth is that care is consistent. The other daughter-in-law wasn't heartless. She offered to be there for Naomi. She even joined her on the first part of the journey, but eventually she had to return home and take care of her own life. And when something bad happens, living rooms are always full of caring friends. Fridges are always full of meals. The cards and flowers pour in. The phones are buzzing off the hook. But I've had so many grieving people tell me that the weeks after the funeral are the hardest, because that's when all the people go back to their own lives. You get calls right after the surgery when you're still at the hospital, but not very many when you're in month 8 of rehab and recovery. There's friends who want to take you to dinner after a breakup, but there aren't as many invites a year later, even though you're still lonely. Our care can move from good to great when we commit to being there for someone for the long haul. Third lesson from Ruth is that caring is not the same as treatment. Many of us have that fix-it instinct. We see a problem, we want to fix it. And some of us are pretty good fixers too, but caring for someone does not mean fixing their problems. Caring looks like being present, listening, encouraging, being empathetic, providing support. Ruth was not going with Naomi to fix everything for her. She was going just to be with her so she didn't have to do it alone. We may not be able to cure our friend's disease or put their marriage back together or turn back time. We don't always have the cure, but we can always provide care. And the last lesson we learn is from Naomi, and that is that care can be uncomfortable. Now, this time I'm not talking about those caring for others. I'm talking about when we're the ones receiving care from others. Naomi responded the same way a lot of us do when someone offers to care for us. She said, just go, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? I'm not going to have any more sons that could become your husbands. And she basically tells them, I'm fine, don't worry about me, I'll be okay. We hear these type of responses all the time. Don't go out of your way. Oh, you shouldn't have. I'll pay you back for that. Most of us would much rather be the caregiver than the care receiver. We've talked a lot about the effects of individualism on our relationships in this series, and this one's probably the most harmful of them all, because individualism tells us that we can do it by ourselves, even on our hardest days, even when we feel broken. And we resist and deny care from others, and it doesn't make us strong, it just leaves us feeling miserable. Naomi eventually let Ruth come with her, and Ruth provided for her and protected her. She even got remarried and had children and gave Naomi a family again. Just think how this story would have ended if Naomi had pushed Ruth away. Or how will our stories end if we push people away when they're trying to care for us? One of the hardest parts for me being pregnant is you have to let people help you. You don't have a choice. I can't lift heavy objects. I can't go 100% all day, every day right now. I can't even reach the bottom of my washing machine. There'll probably be a day where I might not be able to tie my own shoes. I constantly need help, and that pregnancy is only preparing me for all the help I'm going to need when the babies actually arrive. But I've realized you can learn to get comfortable letting others care for you, or life will force you to learn. Some days you'll be Ruth, taking care of a friend, providing support, but other days you're going to be Naomi. You're going to be the friend that's getting care. And getting good at both is going to make us more dynamic friends. Your discussions today will require some vulnerability. They will be more meaningful if you're honest with one another. They will also give you a chance to care for one another. So listen, practice empathy, be understanding, and I hope you all have meaningful discussions together.